How matachiapi, Barb Gurr machiapie. I greet you in the language of the Lakota people, which is not my language, as evidenced by my really brutal mispronunciation, so apologies to my Lakota relatives. But I greet you in Lakota because I want to begin as I hope to proceed, which is by recognizing and acknowledging the Lakota people. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize and acknowledge our indigenous relatives here in the land named after the long tidal river. It is my hope today that I amplify the voices of these indigenous relatives, but of course you will be hearing those voices filtered through this non-native woman, and it's important to recognize that as well. You'll also notice I don't have a PowerPoint, which is kind of anathema in academia, right? And to be perfectly honest, I'm a little discombobulated without the visual anchor. But I thought at the end of this very thought-provoking day, it might be nice to just simply sit and listen. I suspect that many of us don't take enough time to simply listen. I also suspect I was invited to speak today because I've done some work with some of the water defenders at Standing Rock Reservation. So for those of you who may not feel like you're up to speed on what's gone down in North Dakota, particularly over the last 8 months or so, I'm going to give you a super abbreviated version, and then I'm going to talk about a lot of other things. There is a pipeline crossing land and water it shouldn't be crossing. As a matter of fact, some people argue that pipeline shouldn't even exist. And so the Lakota people and thousands of their allies gathered at Iawoshlaha, Standing Rock Reservation, to protect the land and the water and to resist the invasion of that pipeline. Now today the pipeline is complete and the oil is flowing, and so you might be tempted to think they failed. But I would think you're short-sighted. A couple of weeks ago, my family and I traveled to Washington, D.C. with thousands of other people to march in the Native Nations Rise March. It was an incredible experience to march the streets of the U.S. Capitol and smell sage burning, and hear the drums, and see Native people everywhere, and hear Native languages singing prayer songs. It was incredibly profound. In the capital city of the settler colonialist nation, indigeneity was palpable. I hope we can make some of that indigeneity palpable today as well. But first, I want to start at the beginning, and I do actually mean the beginning because I want to start with the Lakota creation story. A long time ago, there was nothing. There was not even something against which to understand nothing. There was simply nothing except for one. And that one was Ea. Now, after a while, probably hard to measure in human standards, Ea got bored and lonely and wanted there to be something else, something to keep him company, to visit with, something to be in relationship with. But remember, there was nothing with which to create something. Now, in the Abrahamic tradition, we're taught that God creates with logos, the word. God speaks, and it exists. But Ea did not create with language. Maybe there was no language, I don't know, I haven't been told. But remember, there was nothing. All there was Ea. And so in order to create something else, Ea could only use himself. And so he cut himself and he bled. And from that blood, Ea created everything there is in the universe: the stars, the moon, the sun, the water, the swimming ones, the winged ones, the four-leggeds, and the two-leggeds. Ea created all that is in the universe, and he didn't stop creating until he ran out of blood. And he was cold and hard and shrunken. He was rock. So the Lakota people today remember that Tonkashila, grandfather Ea, sacrificed everything that he was so that we could live in this incredible universe that you've been hearing a little bit about today, so that we could live in relationship instead of isolation. Now, I'm not a physical scientist and I'm not a natural scientist, I'm a social scientist, but I read. And I'm reading a lot lately about how the physical scientists and the natural scientists are telling us we are actually related to everything in the universe. Humans, they tell us, are made of stardust. We are genetically related to fruit flies and bananas and bonobos. 60% of our bodies are composed of water. We thrive, we live in a dynamic symbiosis with trees. We are related to everything. The Lakota people have a phrase that you hear all the time in Lakota spaces, and I'm not going to try to pronounce it because, believe me, I would get phone calls on that mispronunciation. But it translates to something like, we are all related. All my relations, we are all related. And you hear this phrase everywhere, all the time in Lakota spaces. You hear it at the beginning of important things and at the end of important things, business meetings, ceremonies, the school day, sometimes even when people are just talking to each other about particular things. We are all related. We are all related. It serves as a constant reminder to the Lakota people of this foundational principle. It serves as a reminder, but perhaps also as a claim. This past fall, twice I had the opportunity to travel out to Standing Rock and stand with the defenders, and I hope that I went out as a relative. My parents raised me right, so I know you don't go to your cousin's house for dinner and not bring an appetizer. You don't go to your brother's for dinner and not bring the pie. So when I traveled out to Standing Rock, I brought supplies. When you travel to someone's home, you bring a gift to thank them for their hospitality. They in turn welcome you. And this reciprocity builds your relationship. So I showed up at Oceti-Sakowin Camp, the largest of the camps at Standing Rock, with a trunk full of supplies, and I found a very good friend of mine there. Her name is Lakota. She is Lakota, and her grandmother named her that so that she would always remember who she is and where she comes from. So I found my friend Lakota, and she introduced me to her family, her brother, her cousins, her aunties, and they, like good relatives, welcomed me to their camp circle. Oh, pull your car up, sleep with us tonight. They fed me, we sat around the fire, visiting. Her brother sang a beautiful song for me, we prayed together, and we went to action together. So on my second trip out there, I was very lucky to have friends traveling with me, and I was very lucky to have good friends send me money to buy more supplies. So I contacted one of Lakota's aunties before I went out, and I said, "Auntie, we're coming back out. We're bringing supplies. What do you need? Do you need food? Do you need water? Do you need blankets? Do you need jackets? Do you need propane heaters? Do you need propane tanks?" And she said, "We need chocolate chip cookies." So my friends and I landed in Bismarck, and we went to Walmart, and we bought out the chocolate chip cookies, and we drove down to the camps. Two of my friends are doctors, and so they went off to the medical area to see how they could be helpful. And my other friend went off to chop firewood. And I, having no such applicable skills, went to the mess tent and washed dishes. Hundreds and hundreds of dishes. And when I was done washing dishes, although I don't think anyone ever really finished washing all those dishes, I grabbed the chocolate cookies and I went to visit Auntie. And Auntie, of course, welcomed me to her camp, and she fed me and she sat me down by the fire. And so we sat together visiting and chatting and catching up, huddled in our winter jackets, trying to stay warm by the fire. It was the break of a North Dakota winter, just a couple of days before the first blizzard would hit the camps. And I asked her, "Auntie, what do you think about all of this? What do you think about what's happening and all of these people being here?" It was just a few short days after the truly horrific events of Sunday, November 20th, when the Morton County Sheriff's Department used water cannons on the defenders in sub-freezing temperatures. And when a young woman lost her arm because an officer threw a concussion grenade at her. And when the defenders were sprayed once again with mace and rubber bullets. And if you've never seen a rubber bullet, it's about the size of my hand. A couple of days after that happened, the Army Corps of Engineers sent a letter to the camps and said, "You can't stay here. Winter is coming, and we want you to be safe." A little ironic after the behavior of the Morton County Sheriff's Department. But the Army Corps of Engineers says, "We want you to be safe, so you can't stay here, but we'll set up free speech zones for you." Now it starts to feel an awful lot like removal and reservationization. So I asked Auntie what she thought about this, and she scoffed. And she said, "We know who they are. They think they're going to scare us. Don't they know they only make us stronger? We've always been here," she said. "We're not going anywhere." Now, when a Lakota grandmother, huddling in her winter jacket, trying to stay warm by the fire on the break of a North Dakota winter, and I repeat this because it was cold, folks, it was cold. When that Lakota grandmother looks at you and says, "We've always been here. We're not going anywhere." If you're smart, you listen. Now, I'm not always smart, but I did listen to Auntie, and her words have really stuck with me. And they continued to stick with me as I was thinking about doing this talk today, and as I was thinking about our theme of catalyst. Right, catalyst. What is it that pushes the change? What is it that pushes us forward? What inspires? Where's the fire in the belly? What's the linchpin? What's the turning point? What's the motivation? We've always been here. We're not going anywhere. I'm frequently asked, in fact, when I talk about the Dakota Access Pipeline, "Barb, what was the catalyst for this? What started all this? What got all of these people out there?" And in fact, lots of people went to Standing Rock. When I was there the first time, Indigenous Day weekend at the beginning of October, they estimated about 3,000 people had given up days, weeks, months of their lives to camp in nylon tents and pop-up campers and cars and teepees and use porta potties and chop firewood for warmth. 3,000 people. When I was out there at the end of November, it was 10,000 people. This got big. And so I'm often asked, how did this get so big, Barb? What was the catalyst for this? And my answer, which is going to sound kind of flip, but I'm completely serious, my answer is always, well, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. 1492 is the catalyst for Standing Rock. And 1598, and 1680, and 1791, and 1838, and 1876, and 1890. And 1969, and 1973, and 1978, and 2016, and 2017, they've always been here. They're not going anywhere. So when I'm asked, what was the catalyst for Standing Rock? I don't really think I'm being asked what brought all those non-natives together. I think what I'm really being asked is, what brought all the non-natives out to Standing Rock? And thousands of non-native people got involved with this movement. Thousands of non-native people marched, rallied, demonstrated, divested from the banks that funded the pipeline, showed up, stood up at Standing Rock. Thousands of non-native allies. What was their motivation? What was their catalyst? I think that's actually a much more complicated question, and to be perfectly honest, I'm not going to spend much time on it because I didn't come here today to talk about non-natives. But I will spend a couple of minutes on it because I do think it's actually a very important question, and I don't want to just blow it off, right? So what brings non-native people to Standing Rock? What motivates? What's the catalyst for non-native people to get involved at Standing Rock? I think it has something to do with the tireless work of Idle No More, an Indigenous organization in Canada that has led resistance against tar sands extraction and the Keystone Pipeline and other pipelines since 2012. I think it has something to do with the skilled Native American drone operators who recorded events at Standing Rock and made them public so that the rest of us would know. I think it has something to do with the powerful and profound stories that the artists and musicians at Standing Rock have made public so that the rest of us would know. I think it has something to do with the social media mavens who posted and tweeted constantly because the media was not paying attention so that the rest of us could know. I think it has to do with a lot of these things. I want to tell you one more story rather quickly, and then I'll wrap it up a little bit. So flash back to the year 2000, and I'm still wearing shoulder pads. And I'm watching The View, and this really wise man comes out to sit down with the ladies as they do. And the ladies of The View ask this very wise man, "Wow, what inspired you? What motivated you to make this change?" And this man says very wisely, "Well, ladies, when something is unacceptable, you have to do something about it. When something is unacceptable, you have to do something about it. Otherwise, you're actually accepting it. Native people have never accepted conquest. They have never acquiesced to being invisible. They have never agreed to the theft of their treaty-ceded land. 500 years of resistance, over 14,000 years of existence here. 500 years of surviving the incessant physical, sexual, structural, epistemic violences perpetrated against them every day in ways both large and small, and they are still here. They've always been here. They're not going anywhere. When you're a good relative, my parents taught me, you don't turn your back on family in need. You don't look away, you don't walk away when your family is struggling. You turn toward them, you walk toward them, and you stand with them. I think that understanding of relationship is also what brought so many people to Standing Rock, both native and non-native. We are all related, after all. The stars, the water, the swimming ones, the four-legged, the two-legged. We are all related. Wopila. Thank you very much for listening.